You're about to enter the Atomic Voodoo Lounge, New Stanton's one and only surreal dive bar, bringing you beauty and magic and terahertz tragic. I'm Maxwell Vegas, writer, poet, musician, and author of the now published novel, New Stanton. More about that later. Descend with me into the static buzz of late night radio, where words and music swirl through neon dreams and drift like cigarette smoke out over dried up prehistoric seas. You've just entered New Stanton's place for a taste of the strange in poetry, fiction, and music, where the offerings come steeped in liminal noir surreal vibes. Welcome to the Atomic Voodoo Lounge Podcast. Take your seat at the bar, relax, order a drink, enjoy the show. I'm Maxwell Vegas, and tonight we'll have a new episode of the Neon Mirage's Back Alley Noir, written by Wade, curator of the DVD Vault, on Substack and Instagram. This episode focuses on Akira Kurosawa's 1963 film High and Low, for a bit of that Japanese noir. In addition, we'll have music from the Retro Liners and a spoiler-free review of Back Rooms by Amy and Corey, in the first segment of Zoe Falk's short story, Back Rooms Panic. I guess we're all in the back rooms tonight. Tonight, the Atomic Voodoo Lounge Podcast and New Stanton's Neon Mirage Theater are proud to present Back Alley Noir, written by Wade of the DVD Vault on Substack and Instagram. The Back Alley Noir series is an attempt to introduce newcomers to the world of noir and neo-noir cinema, in addition to nudging the noir-minded to revisit some spectacular films. Tonight, Wade introduces us to a little Japanese noir with Akira Kurosawa's 1963 film High and Low. Akira Kurosawa demonstrates a combination of versatility and genius as he takes the conventions of noir filmmaking to the cutthroat world of women's shoes with High and Low, 1963. Like most movies, High and Low follows a 3-act structure, but one thing setting the film apart is that each act exists in a different genre. The first act is a character-driven drama about a man's inner turmoil over doing the right thing, knowing that it will ruin him. The overarching theme of this portion of High and Low is succinctly stated by the wife of the great Toshiro Mifune's Gondo, as she advises her husband that success isn't worth losing your humanity. The film's dilemma of a kidnapper accidentally taking Gondo's chauffeur's son instead of Gondo's, and still demanding that the shoe company executive pay the exorbitant ransom, highlights the high and low class differences, a notion also represented by Gondo's mansion sitting atop a hill overlooking an impoverished district. After an amazing ransom exchange sequence on a train, the second act of High and Low focuses on catching the kidnapper and recovering the ransom money by diving headfirst into the most amazing police procedural work ever portrayed on film outside of a Michael Mann movie. There's a brilliant scene in which the entire police force is meeting to discuss their progress and the intricate mapping of how each specialized team contributes a small piece of the puzzle in a masterclass in genre filmmaking. The final act turns into a cat and mouse thriller with the police identifying the kidnapper and surveilling him to ensure they can get the maximum sentence. There's a scene in a heroin den where addicts glide like phantoms to the living, with eerie music and sound effects accompanying the terrifying visuals. The sequence once again confirms a statement I made after watching Kurosawa's Throne of Blood, 1957, that Kurosawa could have worked in any genre and mastered it, especially horror. Wade is a lit major and an educator who shares and discusses films through the physical media they're printed on. And he has an impressive movie library of over 2,400 films, probably more than that by now. For more of his insightful cinematic discussions, please visit his DVD vault at dvdvault.substack.com. The cocktail of the evening tonight is The High and Low. This one's based on Akira Kurosawa's film, High and Low, 1963, and it was pretty simple to come up with thanks to Kurosawa's building such a stark architectural contrast between Gondo's pristine hilltop world and the suffocating heat of the slums below. And this drink, I think, captures it. If you're looking for a cold, clear, controlled, corporate, expensive high, and a hot, smoky, crowded, desperate, acidic low, and a tension between them, a moral vertigo, if you will, you're in for a treat. The High and Low. Here's a two-tone, morally divided cocktail. Clean and icy on top, smoky and hot underneath. As you drink, the layers blur, just like Gondo's Certainty. Here's what you'll need. For that top layer, the high, 1.5 ounces of gin for that crisp, elegant, controlled touch. Also, a little corporate chill, 1/2 ounce dry vermouth, and a little precision with 1 dash orange bitters. For that bottom layer, the low, you need 1/2 ounce mezcal for smoke, heat, and the undercity feel. Also, 1/2 ounce grapefruit juice, some sharp bitter reality thrown in there, and a 1/4 ounce grenadine, the pink smoke, unmistakable. Here's how to make it. Build the bottom layer, shake mezcal, grapefruit, and grenadine with ice, strain into a chilled rocks glass. Float the top layer, stir gin, vermouth, and bitters with ice until very cold, and gently pour over the back of a spoon so it sits on top. Serve without stirring. The drink should look like a moral divide, pale clarity above red smoke and danger. Let the drink mix as you sip. The layers collapse slowly, just like Gondo's world. And enjoy. Here are the retro liners with Via Cassavetes off of Lucifer's Lounge, 2012. The Retroliners with Via Cassavetes off of Lucifer's Lounge 2012. Check them out on Apple Music and Spotify. Everybody's talking about these back rooms. Very scary, very liminal, neither here nor there, like most of our lives. Amy from the Wandering Soul podcast volunteered to go watch this Backrooms and report back with Corey in a sort of conversational movie review.
Hi, I'm Amy from the Wandering Soul podcast.
And I'm Corey.
And we're here today to give you our review of the blockbuster film The Back Rooms, directed by Kane Parsons. The budget for this film was $10 million. And the soundtrack was by, and this surprised both of us, Kane Parsons and Ido Van Brennan. Do you want to give us a little summary? Or
Yeah, it's so it follows the main character. His name is Clark, and he is recently divorced and living in the furniture store that he owns. And he comes across a sort of like a different dimension in his store, like the entrance to a different dimension in his store that is just this huge labyrinth of basically just like office space and other weird liminal areas.
very liminal.
And his therapist is the second lead character. And yeah, is that all I should say? I don't know.
Well, she does end up following him into the back rooms where hilarity ensues.
Yes.
Indeed. Clark is played by Chiwetel Ejiofor. I'm sorry, we don't mean to mangle this poor man's name, but it's a rough one. I think he's kind of an up-and-coming actor. His performance, what did you think?
I think that he really shined when he was doing solo scenes by himself. When he discovered the back rooms for the first time. And there's also a monologue from him at the end that is really good. But I feel like during his scenes with, I think specifically his therapist in the therapy office, I feel like they just felt sort of, I don't know, they fell flat to me. I feel like it just really felt like he was acting. And I wasn't entirely convinced in those moments.
Okay. I agree with you to some extent. I didn't feel necessarily that way the whole way through. I thought he did a fine job.
Yeah.
The problem I had was with his therapist character, Mary, played by Renate Reinsve. To me, her performance fell very flat. I know that she's playing a therapist, and in the sessions, she's keeping it very straight-faced. But otherwise, even when she's out in the world or in the back rooms, it felt kind of like she was holding back.
I'm not sure if that was so much about her acting or if it was the writing of her character, because I feel like a lot of the things there could have been more explored with her, I think.
Well, she's a trauma repressed person. Had a difficult childhood. We get a little bit of her backstory. Clark is a person who is going through a great deal of anger. So they are both, in a way, kind of stuffing their feelings, holding back on a lot. And part of that plays into, I think, the plot of the story, right? Their memories and that idea of trauma kind of becomes exposed in the back rooms.
both of their respective reactions to being in the back rooms, I think,
Yes.
show sort of the sort of characters that they are.
Okay, so we had discussed the sets a little bit. I forget how many square feet of back rooms they actually made. Do you remember? It was some ridiculous amount. But it's all in the very pale wallpaper that, if you've seen the YouTube videos, you are very familiar with.
Which previously, when Kane made those videos, they were all CGI, which was also very impressive.
Really?
That he made all of those.
Oh,
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, none of that was a physical space, I don't think.
Wow.
They were 30,000 square feet.
30,000
what they
square
built.
feet of set. And apparently even, like, the crew workers and stuff were getting lost in them. But the thing that is interesting to me is, there's a very liminal look about the back rooms. But in the film, when we are outside of the back rooms, it's still really liminal. Mm-hmm. The furniture store where he works has got that look. The place where his employees look.
It was interesting because I couldn't really quite tell what time this movie was set in the
What
beginning.
time period?
Until his employees came in and they were dressed like normal, like Gen Z young adults.
Yeah. Well, part of that idea of liminality is to evoke a kind of nostalgia, right? Mm-hmm. For maybe something you haven't even experienced.
Yeah.
But it was very curious to me, and I wondered why that particular decision was made to make the outside as liminal as the inside. Apart from that, the soundtrack, we both agreed.
Incredible.
Really incredible. Did we discuss that already?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Sorry
I
for
don't know.
repeating ourselves, but Kane Parsons did the soundtrack.
And also Ido Van Bremen.
Bremen, I think. Yeah.
Bremen.
And if you listen, you can hear part of the OG soundtrack from the YouTube videos in the film, which I thought was really, really kind of cool and
really
interesting.
cool.
A good callback there. What else did you like about the film, or dislike?
I'm not sure. I feel like I love the absurdity. I love the scene where it was him like running away from that creature. And there was a scene that felt very like kind of like Lynchian. Where,
Really?
There was a creature that came out. I don't want to say too much, but like it felt that way. It was very surreal in a lot of parts, which I enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of the movie is surreal and it has that other world dimension kind of thing to it. So one thing that we discussed immediately after we saw the film was, do the back rooms symbolize something, if
I mean,
anything?
absolutely.
You think they do?
Of course they do.
Why?
I feel like it was very obvious how a lot of parts of it were inspired by AI, and how things are copied onto each other, and to the point of being almost unrecognizable, like boiling down to their like very simplest parts.
So in the film, when you're in the back rooms, there are places that are somewhat recognizable, but they get reduced. There's a really memorable scene where we are looking at a room and we kind of scroll down as though we're going underground, but it keeps going. But in each of the scenes of the same room, it's like everything is sort of melting into the floor until it becomes entirely changed and it's pretty much nothing.
Yeah.
So maybe that, how would that relate to AI? Just the idea that...
The idea, well, if you put a picture into AI and then you copy it using AI and then you copy that copy over and over and over, it eventually gets boiled down into the most simple part of that original image.
Okay.
Like, it focuses in on something.
Okay. Which, and we don't want to give too much away, if you see and think about what happens to Clark in the film, that kind of eventually happens to him as well. We also talked about how it's kind of like work-life balance, maybe? Because my question was, why does so much of the back rooms look like a freaking office?
I feel like it's either because of that or just because there's a lot of office spaces in the world. I feel like maybe it's the most... Do you think it's the most common building other than houses?
I guess. I don't know. So, well, if I want to push that idea, what I come up with is that idea that all we're basically doing is working. You know? Some people work 2 or 3 jobs, and that idea of a work-life balance just doesn't exist. So in the back rooms, everything is sort of work.
Yeah.
Or at least the setting of work.
Which sort of reminds me of Severance in a way, now that I'm thinking about it.
Wow, yeah. Oh, no.
Could
that
be
would
sort of
be
similar.
That would take us into an entirely different
Which,
tangent.
also just thinking about Severance, the office in Severance is also kind of a labyrinth.
It's a labyrinth,
very similar.
And it also has that liminal feel.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yes. We did talk as well about how the back rooms might symbolize that idea of trauma or repressed trauma, and how that operates with our memories. We don't want to spoil too much, but both of these people, Clark and Mary, have separate issues that they're dealing with. I mean, Clark is an angry...
Yeah, they have separate issues that they're dealing with in very different ways.
Yes. So Clark will act out on his anger in some ways, but Mary just kind of keeps it all in. The back rooms could be somewhat of a representation of that.
Representation of your mind, I guess, sort of, in a way.
The way the mind functions in that it is selective in memory and will maybe choose certain elements
to focus in
on. Okay.
I think so.
And if we were going to do spoilers, there would be a way to talk about how this is represented in the film, but I don't know.
You'll just have to see.
You'll just have to go see it.
Yeah.
Well, what's your rating?
Out of 5. I think I'll give it a 4.
4 out of 5?
Yeah.
And why are you subtracting points?
I just feel like I wish more was explored, and some of the scenes, some of the character writing fell a little bit flat to me, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I also went with a 4 out of 5. I mean, there were definitely a couple surprises in there that I did not see coming. But I also felt like more could have been in there, could have been done.
Yeah.
The Backrooms itself, now the YouTube series, has it just became this huge
phenomenon. Yeah.
And I do feel like, there could have been a little more looked at there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, go see The Backrooms if you haven't already.
Yes.
And this is Amy, again, from the Wandering Soul Podcast.
And I'm Corey.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Thank you, Amy and Corey, for that lovely discussion. Spoiler free. But guess what? They also recorded one with spoilers. So later on, I'll be posting both the spoiler-free and the spoiler-filled review of Backrooms as AVL short episodes. So stay tuned. Here are the Retroliners with Danger in Suede. The Retroliners with Danger and Suede off of Shades in the Dark 2018. Check them out on Spotify or Apple Music. In the spirit of back rooms, how about a little panic? This is the first part of a story by Zoe Falk. Backrooms Panic by Zoe Falk. Catalina parked her car at the edge of an interstate bridge. The check engine light rang a fourth time today. With a huff, she lay back against the rough leather seats and closed her eyes. She counted to 10 and opened them again. The blinking signal on her dashboard turned off, enveloping her in the silence of the empty road. Her phone, long overdue for cell service, showed 3:32 a.m. as the time. She sighed and glanced around the dark forest surrounding her vehicle. I wonder if the animals would bother eating me, she thought. I left a restaurant, so I might become dinner for any furry babies. She smiled at the sentiment and gathered she would be useful for once. If not to people, then at least a wild hog or a vulture. The driver's side door popped open. She exited the vehicle and walked along the metal overpass. Crickets chirped in the dark as a cool gust of wind blew into her blouse and hair. The woods usually carried a distinct smell, but at that moment, nothing wafted into her nose. It was the proper atmosphere for a funeral. In 5 quick strides, she hopped over the safety barrier and peered down into the rushing river. The water sloshed about in a sharp rhythm, and with the lack of stars or moon in the sky, it had no reflection. The one time I do this, and nothing is pretty, she huffed, her lips set in a pout. She took a moment, her thoughts a jumble of the events that got her there. A tight-faced doctor told her she had the early stages of brain cancer. A call from her mother's care facility told her the old woman had died from choking on a chess piece. The house she had saved up for was now taken off the market and bought by none other than her ex-boyfriend and his wife. The same wife he told her he'd leave every time she was curled beside him in hotel rooms. Hot tears ran down her face, and without a second thought, she jumped. Catalina groaned, her cheek pressed into a scratchy floor that smelled like wet pennies. She lifted her head, vision in a blurred shade of mustard yellow. She blinked and sat up. Why am I not dead? She wondered if the last couple of hours had been a dream. It certainly felt like one, as she hadn't given her suicide much contemplation. The room she found herself in was the ugliest set of connecting hallways she had ever seen. Yellow, neon walls with brown trim and buzzing overhead lights. The carpet she sat on didn't seem to have been cleaned since it was installed. She lifted her hand and pinched her side. Ow, she grumbled. She was certainly alive, but how? The last thing she could remember was jumping off the bridge. Wind whipped through her hair as she plummeted down 30 feet, then darkness. She rose and took a cautious step. The bottom of her sneakers sank into the wet carpet. The squish made her gag. "Hello?" she called out, the voice a solitary echo in the bright rooms. She waited for a minute, then called out again. Still nothing. Maybe I fell into one of those underground buildings, she mused and tilted her chin. The ceiling was closed. She hadn't fallen through. Stupid, if I really fell into something like that, the water from the river would have flooded this place before I could open my eyes. With a huff, she stood and trekked along the winding pathways, which felt like hours. Her feet, sore in the old shoes, pinched the sides of the mesh material. After screaming for so long, Catalina's voice was nearly gone. She rubbed her dry throat and rounded the corner. The hallway had opened up into a circular space with 4 directions. In the middle was a comically wide armchair and a round table. She glanced around, finding no sign of life. At least there's something I can sit in, she mumbled and approached the chair. A heavy sigh left her lips as she sank into the seat. The blue fabric cushions were a relief on her legs. They throbbed as they dangled over the edge. On the table sat a slip of paper wedged under an empty teacup. She arched her brow and plucked it. It was a note. Dear reader, I write this as a warning. Do not die. No matter what happens or how bad life gets, do not jump from windows or take a toaster bath. I did that. And right now, I wish I had just taken Mary's advice and talked to a therapist. My name is Peter Quinn. I was a high school janitor and a university dropout. My age is 32, I think, and I have an orange cat named Moose. Why am I telling you this? I don't know. I guess I just wanted someone to know who I was in case I didn't make it out. Likely, if you're reading this, you're either thinking of ending things or have already done it and are roaming where I am. If it's the second option, then listen carefully. I got here for many reasons. I was evicted from my apartment, was working a job I hated, and got dumped by my girlfriend, the Mary woman I mentioned. So, like any other normal American, I gave Moose to a friend who I knew could take care of him and jumped off a bridge. I was supposed to hit the ground, but instead of a splat on sharp rocks, because of course the river would be dry in April, I landed on the same carpet you probably did. If you did, then keep reading. If not, then good luck. Okay, if you're still here, then that means you're in a room with yellow walls, dirty gray carpet, and buzzing fluorescent lights. Well, hate to break it to you, but you're in a maze. Yeah, these rooms don't end. At least not at first. If you found this at the table with the weird blue armchair, then take the first path on the left. From there, you'll keep going and find a second item I left behind. A star carved into the wall. There was a rock, believe it or not, on the floor, so I'll use that. I'm also almost out of paper, so you'll find part 2 there. That is, if I find something to write on. So, there was someone here. Catalina folded the note and shoved it in her jeans pocket. The idea that someone was in a similar predicament at one point was a comfort, though the circumstances were too coincidental for her liking. Both individuals jumped over bridges. The note didn't state which overpass Peter used. There was no date on the note either, so there was no telling when he made his plunge. I guess I could stay here, but there's no food, and I'm definitely not going to suck the carpet for some feet water. Ew. She shuddered at the thought and slid off the chair. Based on the instructions, she took the farthest left hallway. The end of it wasn't the usual one-way trip. It curved and broke off into sectors that led to dead ends. The only one without an abrupt wall was a half wall with a crawl space. A lime green light emitted from the other end. A chill ran through her spine as she knelt at the tiny entranceway. On the other side was another yellow room fashioned as a den. A wonky star was carved into the wallpaper. She sucked in a breath and crawled. The rough carpet rubbed into her shirt, leaving her skin prickly and wet. When she stood, her chest burned. Ah! She peeked into her blouse. Her skin was red, no doubt irritated from whatever bacteria were living on the floor. She growled and scratched the area till the stinging became a soft heat. The green room was small. A 2-seater couch, beige coffee table, and empty bookcase made up the space. On the shelves sat a folded piece of pink paper. She picked it up. It was another note, though this one was much shorter due to it being ripped in half. Dear reader, it's me again, Peter, if you don't remember. I found paper. There was a notepad left on the table, so I'll be using this with my pen to continue the instructions. Admittedly, I could have kept this to myself, but after roaming this place for God knows how long, I figured it was best if I kept track of this place. Besides, it keeps me sane. The other night I thought I saw something peeking at me around the corner. I ran to it thinking it was a human, but there was nothing. Just another boring hallway. There are too many here to count. Anyway, you found the star. Yay! I went ahead to check for safe passage. Take this hallway all the way down and go right. This green lighting will stop when you round that corner. From there, just keep walking straight ahead. When you reach the room that looks like a mirror, go left and don't stop. I'll leave another star carved in the wall and a note. Good luck. Great. So I'll have to jump through hoops to get out of here? She folded the slip of paper and shoved it in her jeans. As she traveled, the green lighting caressed her body. It was warm and dried the stain on her shirt. As silence stretched, her steps slowed to a stop. Why am I trying? What would her mother call this? Oh yes, irony. A small scoff left her mouth. It turned into a chuckle. Oh, she'd be laughing at me right now. Catalina's mother was an English professor at the University of Chicago. She'd been with them for 15 years before she was diagnosed with dementia. From there, quoting Virginia Woolf became distant, incoherent mutterings. It wasn't that she hated her mother during those times, but the scars on her hands were a constant reminder that she didn't recognize her most days. The last thing her mother said when she visited was, "Do you have Dolly? Where is she?" Dolly was Catalina's twin sister. She died after catching tuberculosis at 4 years old. Even when close to death, her mother mourned her favorite child. Globs of tears fell down Catalina's shallow cheeks. "Mommy," she whimpered and wiped the corners of her eyes. Behind her, a crash rang out. She jumped and whipped around. Clipped bellows resounded in the direction of the living room. "What the fuck?" She breathed in a tight whisper. The lion's call pitched to a scream. By the sound of the accompanying stomps, it was big. She picked up her heels and sprinted down the hall. The green lights began to flash. She looked over her shoulder. A stringy black substance ran after her on all fours. For a second, it appeared to mimic human anatomy. A malnourished, sunken chest with limbs that stretched to the walls. Its hands and feet had 3-pronged claws that sank into the wallpaper and carpet as it chased her. It was the face that made Catalina scream. A mass of black meat sat above the chest with a human mask on its face. Faced forward, she came up to the right turn. Nails gripped the edge as she rounded it. The green light became white. The creature crashed into the wall behind her. She could hear its spindly legs squirm as it regained its bearings. The thin path broke off into an infinity room of white pillars and slippery tile. "Go left," she panted. The monster gained on her. She could see its reflection in the tile. Sweat formed on the crown of her head. A rich iron smell invaded her nostrils. She scrunched her face, heart in her throat. The creature reached out and snatched her back. Catalina yelped and darted around the columns. An automatic routine when she played soccer. She weaved through them, all while her back prickled from the open air. She felt as though needles stabbed her skin. The monster reached a second time. Its thin fingers loomed over her head. Its shadow fell over her shoulder. She could see it lower, and as black nails touched her hair, she swerved right. The creature, having put its weight into the swipe, fell forward with a startled screech. A hearty chuckle escaped her lips. Several feet away was a half-wall with a star engraved on the top. The creature galloped for her as she slid into the opening. It slammed into the wall, limbs scrambling to get in. She got to her feet, breathless, and ran. Catalina collapsed when she could no longer hear the monster's foul screams. She lay on her front, chest heaving. "I made it," she thought, and smiled. An image of her mother cheering for her during high school playoffs flashed in her head. "I made it, Mommy," she mumbled. A small beep reached her ears. She lifted herself, elbows on the cool floor. There was a brown door at the end of the hallway with a smoke detector over it. The monster growled from where she had left it. No time was wasted. She yanked the door. Stale, dry air brushed her face. Beyond the entrance was a wide office with rows of cubicles. "Hello?" Her voice bounced around. On the tables were widescreen monitors and dust-covered keyboards. Unattended landlines dangled from the edges. She put one to her ear. Not even static. Out of the corner of her eye, Catalina spotted a familiar pink slip of paper next to a PC. She rushed to it and checked the note. "Dear reader, I hope to God you made it. So far, this is the only safe place I've found in this maze. The person I thought I saw was real. At least I think it was a person at one point. I hid in a crawl space when I passed by. It has a human face, like skinned human flesh slapped on it. Fucking gross, right? I don't know what it is, but avoid it at all costs. Every time you open a door, close it. So far, this has been safe, but I can't guarantee it. Behind the door on the other end are more offices and some vending machines. They work. I took the liberty of breaking them, so feel free to grab anything you might find. There might not be many chances for food after this. I saw a huge conference room with windows. The outside is a city, or I thought it was before I looked up. The night sky is painted. I'll leave the next piece of paper on that table. By then, I'll know more about this location. My best guess is that we're underground. We need to go up." Catalina's stomach grumbled. She hadn't planned to eat after spending the last $30 in her account on IHOP. It was supposed to be her last meal. Why hadn't the jump worked? Of course, death would be too good for her. Of course, she'd be left to suffer. She had never been a religious woman, but at that moment, Catalina prayed to God, hands clasped. She muttered a broken Our Father and asked for a way out. "If it helps, I won't jump off any more bridges," she mumbled and walked through the next door. Vending machines were scattered throughout break rooms and offices. At one point, she discovered an oddly shaped bathroom with 3 toilets, 1 sink, and no dividers. She used one and inspected her back in the mirror. There were thin, black scratch marks on her skin. "Damn it," she hissed and poked the area. The welded skin stung with every touch. She turned the handles on the sink and frowned. They were dry taps. Those vending machines better have water. One torn shirt and a bottle of lukewarm Dasani later, the wound was cleaned. Catalina, able to snag hand sanitizer, lathered it on her hands and bit her tongue as she dabbed the remainder on her back. It hissed in retaliation. Palms slammed on the nearest office table. To calm her nerves, she sat on a creaky swivel chair and tore into a bag of barbecue chips. They were stale and tasted like powdered sauce, by far the best thing she had ever eaten. She tried the phone next to her a second time and instinctively dialed her ex. He was a lawyer, and if he harbored any remorse, he would call his friends at the police station for help. However, considering the messy way they broke up, she doubted he'd find it in his heart to do one last thing for her. The line beeped, then died. Right. I forgot he said he wanted me out of his life. Us out of his life. She corrected. It's not like she wanted to keep it, but hadn't he promised her a pretty life with a family? All he had to do was file. She was sure his wife would have signed it. One romantic dinner later, Catalina surprised him with the news, to which he freaked out and promptly left her. He didn't return her calls or texts. One trip to a clinic erased any trace of him. Several redials later, the repeating tone cut off. No one would come to help her. Shaky exhales left her lips. Why hadn't she tried another way to die? Surely an overdose or a gun would have sufficed. No, she just had to choose the most dramatic version and hoped for the best. Her fingers gripped the thin handset. She rose and slammed the machine against the dingy table. It cracked with every pound. The keyboard was next. Monitor followed. She stopped at the heavy-set PC when her hands gave out. Familiar tears and sticky snot dripped down her face. By now, the last bit of mascara she'd worn was smeared into the mix. Her lashes were clumped in groups. It felt heavy. Why? Why couldn't I have fucking died? The smoke detector beeped in response. What happens next will be revealed in the next episode. It's no longer coming soon. It's here. My novel, New Stanton, is live on Barnes & Noble and Amazon. There's hardback, paperback, and Kindle for all your reading needs. So please find your way over there and order up a copy. Buy one for a friend. You know, reading is fundamental. Coming soon from Heavy Sixer Productions, New Stanton, a novel by Maxwell Vegas. Mr. Harold Dean, a shady alcoholic, just woke up with one hell of a hangover at the Starlight Inn, New Stanton's dingy motel. The only problem is, New Stanton doesn't exist. Join Mr. Dean on this postmodern night journey through buried memories, liminal spaces, and treachery as he searches for his sole means of escape, a blue 1964 Chevy Malibu. Will he be able to find his car before the evil Dr. Freytag does? Can Mr. Dean trust a host of bizarre characters to help him solve the mysteries of his own dysfunction and accept that New Stanton is exactly where he needs to be? The answer to these questions and many more lies scattered across New Stanton, a town that sits on the edge of a dried-up prehistoric sea, a town that exists inside and down. Thanks for listening to the Atomic Voodoo Lounge podcast. I'm Maxwell Vegas. If you're weighing out the high and low of things, chances are you're wasting your time. Just order a copy of New Stanton and you'll be fine. Check out the Atomic Voodoo Lounge podcast playlist on Apple and Spotify. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe at AtomicVoodooLounge.com. Did I mention it's free? Of course I did. I always do. It's free, folks. Don't be scared off. And spread the good word. And if you are interested in contributing or being a sponsor, drop me a line and we can discuss the particulars. And don't forget, our 6-word noir challenge is open to subscribers via the Atomic Voodoo Lounge chat. Check out the Atomic Voodoo Lounge on Substack and subscribe. Find out more about Maxwell Vegas and Heavy Sixer Productions at HeavySixerProductions.com or MaxwellVegas.com. Thank you to Wade, curator of the DVD Vault on Substack and Instagram. Another thank you to Amy and Corey for their Backrooms review, the Retro Liners for some atmospheric tunes, Zoe Falk for part 1 of her Backrooms Panic short fiction, some sound effects and music used under Creative Commons license. All words and music composed, read, programmed, and or performed by Maxwell Vegas, unless otherwise stated. All text, music, and performances copyright Heavy Sixer Productions, LLC, 2026. No AI training. Please keep those AI bots away from the AVL. And always remember, AtomicVoodooLounge.com.